Right, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the tweets shortly. Somebody was in a hurry here. But thank you for keeping it the big question tonight. We are asking you, is Kenya serious in the fight against corruption? And what would it take to effectively contain graft? Keep talking to us on 22422 on Twitter using the hashtag The Big Question. Our guest tonight, Suba MP John Bari, Mukurwein Member of Parliament Kabando, and Houghton Rungu is Associate Director, Society for International Development. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time for The Big Question. Now, let's take a look first at a few tweets, what you're saying. Daniel Angira, administer lethal punishment to corrupt public officers, lest we lose more billions. At SID KDP, we pay high taxes, yet forced to walk on muddy sidewalks. That's the cost of corruption. And at Mutai, look at the AK menace, Athletics Kenya that is. Athletes have always complained, good action, but we are too slow. Right, on 22422, if I can read just one, Kilogo Nicodemus Mwangwin Nanyuki says, no, Kenya is not serious with fighting corruption. We have never seen anyone, and we shall never see anyone prosecuted on the same. I don't know how true that is. My panelists will tell us tonight. And this is because the alleged are always friends of the executive. All will be dismissed with no enough evidence. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming on. To the extent that President Kenyatta actually asked for prayers to help contain this menace that is corruption, how bad is it? I'll start with you, Honorable Kabando.
It is bad, and very gratifying that the President is clear and focused and accepting. And the fact that he accepted before the world in the presence of the Holy Father, the Pope, it's in itself admission by the leadership, which is admirable, that is a challenge. And as we have said, terrorism, illicit drugs, and graft are the trio greatest threat to national stability and progress. And therefore, the President's statement needs to be taken explicitly, clearly, as it was made. And this means that we in Parliament, and those in the executives, and those in the opposition, should be reading from the same script, and the template is the same.
Okay.
Corruption in Kenya is a great threat to national security, stability, and progress.
But is that in itself enough?
First of all, let me put it this way, that there's nowhere in the Bible where we are limited from what we need to ask prayers for. So the President is
right.
at liberty and is actually religious. It is biblical to ask for prayers for anything that you feel is monumental. However, I want to point out that it shows, or it paints a picture of despair, which I think is not very, very useful for us as a country. The President needs to realize that he has a lot of powers as the head of state, and therefore he needs to show confidence, give confidence back to Kenyans by seriously cracking the whip, as opposed to appearing desperate and very to the point that he seems helpless. I don't think he should be helpless. Our President can help us fight the corruption. He captured the picture correctly, that this is actually becoming a national security threat. Right. But he lost it by portraying or giving to Kenyans a picture of desperation and helplessness, which I think he is not. He's not helpless.
He's not helpless. Do you think we are helpless? And what, according to you, Houghton, what is lacking really?
I mean, I think Catholics would probably disagree with the idea that you pray only when you have no hope or that you are helpless. But I understand what my colleague is saying here. I think part of the agreement I think we have to forge as a nation is that, you know, that corruption is singularly the most dangerous threat, not just to our national security, but to our economy and to the very promise of the Constitution. Just to give you some examples, 1 in 5 schools are currently at risk at land grabbing. That's not just large private developers. That is actually communities, people on governance committees who are actually using public land for private interest. Something like 46% of most Kenyans think that it is that you get a service based on who you know within the public service. So the reality is that corruption is pervasive, it is expansive, and I don't think actually that the President alone can tackle this. I think what we saw in the last week was a clear statement of intention by the President to crack down on various mechanisms that are lying. I think the 17 directives were very important. I think the reshuffling of the cabinet has restored a sense of confidence that we may have a leadership that's able to take charge of the situation. But I think what's more important for me is that, you know, social issues like this are not actually dealt with by good intentions. They're not even dealt with by good actions. We have to start seeing some results. And until we see some convictions, and until we start seeing some seizure of assets, then I don't think we're going to be very confident that the presidential promise will deliver.
Okay, I'll bring Barry before I come back to you. He's talked about, I mean, what the president, and even the reshuffle. Do you think first it restores any confidence? And according to you, what is really lacking? What is the problem?
What is lacking is first the president is not coming out clearly on the extent of this corruption. You know, he tells Kenyans this is becoming a national security threat, but he's not coming out clearly to demonstrate what is this that is becoming a national security threat. If it is corruption, who are corrupt? The president has the machinery, and if it is becoming a national security threat, he has the National Intelligence Services to give him information. You don't have even to wait for Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I think that is also something that has been overstretched in this country. We imagine that it's only EACC that can conduct investigations. It is not. We have many other government organs and apparatus and machinery. So the president should come out and tell us, in the case of Eurobond, I am suspecting that such and such is lost, and such and so minister go home. Because the Constitution allows him to suspend. In fact, Article 75 of the Constitution allows him to remove anyone. He doesn't even have to go to court. Okay. If it is the case of Galana, he should tell us clearly how much has been lost.
How much was this? I mean, of this was done in March 2015 when we had this list from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Wasn't that political will?
That is the question. You see, the president comes out quite often now. He came out on 26th of March 2015, and he was given standing ovation in Parliament. We believed then that he actually had some concrete names, or 175 names, who would be investigated and prosecuted, and we would see heads rolling. But later on, he engaged again in sending mixed signals, because the institution that is supposed to investigate these individuals was almost disbanded, so to speak. There is no Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And then that sent a very strong, mixed signal. The other one was where now he appeared through his office to be defending some of the cabinet secretaries, and let me be specific, Anne Waiguru, who has since stepped aside or resigned. The office of the president spent a lot of time defending that cabinet secretary. What do we see today? Her house is being raided. Another case, there is corruption in the office of the president.
Let me bring.
Just quickly. In matters to do with religion and theology, your beliefs and faith, I don't think it is fair to contest. When we are elected to national offices and we are being sworn in, we hold our holy books because we are believers. And therefore, when the president tells the Pope, the country, and his God, protecting me, and you, Pope, pray for me as I face this threat to my state, Kenya. When we started debating as to whether the president sounded helpless or he appeared weak, we are all expected to be weak before God. We supplicate and we worship. Therefore, I'd like to disagree very strongly with the Bandi. I don't think that should be an area of criticism. In areas of God and beliefs and supplication and worship, let's not go there. Number two, I think given the statement that was made in March in the Parliament, which a significant number of people cheered when he was addressing the two houses of Parliament, gave inspiration. But along the way, because of our institutional weaknesses, we had the challenges in the EACC, in DPP, in the investigation, and so on and so forth. They reflect the weaknesses we have as a country in terms of the governance and the justice system in the Republic. And therefore, I think, and I believe that what we should be doing now is to audit where you have come. The president has made his intentions very clear. Suspending 5 cabinet secretaries, even enabling, because we know that has been happening, the spirit of confidence in parliamentary committees. There is a big question here, because sometimes we just look the way of government. We should look at the way of the Republic of Kenya. We are a very corrupt nation, from the politicians to the executives to the religions to the media to private businessmen, and therefore our redemption as a country is to embrace the fight against corruption, strengthening institutions that are mandated to deal with this work. And for the opposition, before you lose a game, remember there was a great coalition government of Moi Kibaki and Raila Odinga. See, they obtained for Kenya a $600 million loan, syndicated loan from 3 commercial banks. That particular time, the Prime Minister then did not raise a question. And you are not saying he should not raise a question now. And remember, we also had the KKV. When I was a State Minister for Youth Affairs,
I've known Kabando for many years, and his capacity, his grasp of history is very powerful. But I think the bigger question that you need to ask us is what needs to happen now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that, and I want to read one text. I'm coming to that. I want to read one text here. Well, actually two, almost the same. Wangi Nyahururu, Gishuru Mwangi says, "We Kenyans behave like modern day Pharisees. We dream, eat, breathe, live, and live corruption so long as it is not us, so it's not affect us." Okay, another person says, "The normal Kenya is serious. We have started a social movement for the people, by the people. Kenya bila corruption. The fight begins with at an individual level." And Dan in Buruburu puts it more plainly, and I want to get your views whether you agree with him. Hussein Mohammed, your question is misplaced. He says you should not be asking whether Kenya is serious in fighting corruption, but whether President Kenyatta is serious in fighting corruption, whose answer is a big no. Is it really about the president only, and look at the other text, or is it about the country?
I think it's a national effort that's required now, and it doesn't take away the criticism that I think Honorable Badi has raised about leadership at the highest level. But I think what we do need to see essentially is probably 4 things. The first is that all the nominees for the cabinet secretaries and for the principal secretaries need to go through lifestyle audits. And they need to base that on KRA returns, and they need to ensure that their families also go through that process, because what we don't want to happen is for another group of leaders to dismay us and demoralize us 6 months to a year from now. So that's the first thing I think needs to happen. The second really is that we need to start looking at the section of government, the level of government that is at the director and the procurement officers level. And I think one of the directives that the President raised is a really important one, which is that procurement officers must be held responsible for any inflated goods and services that they sign off on. If we did that, we would break through a great deal of public corruption. The third thing I think that we need to think about is actually how do we cascade this to different parts of society. Let me just challenge my 2 colleagues, and I'm sure they'll throw it back at me. Political parties. Many of the elected officers come through some form of party structure or the other. The last general elections cost the nation about 286 billion shillings. It was an expensive election, probably the most expensive election. My question is, how are we increasing the level of transparency and the level of accountability within our political parties, create a new political culture that allows for people to emerge from the political parties and then take public office? Because essentially now that we fund political parties, these are also public, they hold public responsibility. So I would go back, Cords and Jubilee. What is it that is happening that is actually taking this fight to corruption to the heart of the political culture?
Okay. First of all, I would agree largely with what you have said with regards to how we need to proceed or going forward. But let me put it this way. For me, I don't think the problem is with Kenyans. I have confidence that if Kenyans got a leadership that believes in fighting corruption, and by the way, when it comes to lifestyle audit, it should even go beyond cabinet secretaries and even the procurement officers. Go to the entire public service, including the state officers, even Parliament. He has just mentioned about members of Parliament being the ones charged with the responsibility to oversight. We need to conduct lifestyle audit of all public officers in this country. But allow me to say this, that the reason why I don't believe this is a problem that Kenyans are generally and naturally corrupt. Remember 2003, Kenyans, because they believed that the leadership which was ushered in then was ready and prepared to fight corruption, Kenyans cooperated. In fact, civilians arrested police officers taking bribes. How else would Kenyans cooperate with you more than that? I think what has failed Kenyans is where they expect their leadership to show by action and deed, and even from their words to action, that they mean business in fighting corruption. Once we get that kind of leadership in place, then we will get it right. Finally, Hussein, if you allow me, I think it is high time we escalated the debate on coming to political office to how committed are you in fighting corruption? Is it even a subject of vetting our presidential candidates, for example? How much do we interrogate our presidential candidate in terms of their commitment to fighting corruption, judging from their history to the present? I think that's something.
Yes, on this one, we are very agreed that we need to strengthen institutions, governance institutions, particularly the office of DPP. It is trying amidst the challenges that are there. The EACC has a momentum for the time being. Should be encouraged. We should continue supporting it and even quickly endorse the commissioner so that it's constitutionally well placed. And in the court, Dr. Willie Mutunga has accepted, the Chief Justice, that there's a challenge and he is already doing something. We should not lose his momentum. Secondly, we who are politicians, in order to inspire Kenyans and fortify the fight against graft, should avoid being pushed into ethnic fiefdoms. That because somebody has a name from Nyeri, or somebody has a name from Sumba, for instance, or somebody is from your party, when there are someone to appear before EACC, you are allowed by your own political party, you are assisted by your own political party to hire goons or to exploit the poor, the jobless youth from the informal settlement, to escort you, even dancers, to ACC. Anybody doing that, first, Kenya should be told, if you escort graft suspects, you are liable for a charge. Two, you who is a suspect, unless they are your lawyers, even your relatives, your kin and your friends, should not be permitted to be anywhere near Integrity Center. And we should consider implementing, because we have law, the Public Officers Ethics Act prohibits public servants from presiding over Harambes, from doing public collections. That's a law 2003, and also the chapter on integrity and leadership should be amended, including also chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, so that we make terrorism, graft, and dealing drug trafficking either capital offenses or life imprisonment.
We have to wind up because of time, but Hilton asked a very important question to both of you, which hasn't been answered really, and I want to put it more directly. Many people, in fact, it's already being said now, the political class has already started establishing a war chest financially for the next campaigns. And we know in this country, for you to win an election, you must have some substantial amount of finance for your campaigns. If we contrast, for example, with what happens in the United States of America, where you sell your ideas and people fund you. The difference here is that you're the one to give people money at the end of the day. How do we reconcile that? And even your personal experiences, how has it been for you, and how do you reconcile that? How do you change that? Because it adds, I mean, it plays a big role in as far as corruption is concerned in this country.
First of all, I agree with you entirely that actually one of the causes of corruption in this country is funding elections. Because once you allow money that people who are corrupt to finance and fund your campaigns, then it is impossible not to do business with them once you are in power. But that comes to campaign financing laws that need to be put in place.
How do you think?
The problem is, even if you put these laws in place, the respect in this country for the legal framework is a challenge. Look at even our laws as they are today regarding election, conduct of election, how it talks about violence, how it talks about voter bribery. They're all in our laws, but still they are not respected. So I think what needs to be done is to have these laws in place to control campaign financing, but also above all to have a commission that has teeth to bite. The law we have today does not allow any state officer to use state resources in campaigns, but we see it every day in by-elections, in general elections.
Very briefly, because you're winding up.
So actually, the question is implementation of the law. And I accept the challenge, and I do think that everybody agrees that leadership is what is required, like happened when NAC took over 2003. I can assure you, Uhuru Kenyatta, the president of this country, is currently extremely determined to slay the dragon of graft. It is good to be merciless, and good enough himself is incorruptible.
Hit any winding comments?
Yes, the moral authority.
Because of time, yeah.
So I think what we agreed on the table is essentially this is a national exercise, and that we need to mobilize. Within the non-governmental organizations, we have begun to take this quite seriously, particularly in terms of trying to transform the cultural belief that actually even gives rise to the myth that leaders need to be corrupt or need to raise lots of money in order to be re-elected. Actually, if you are a good leader, you don't need to pay people to vote for you. That is the truth. We've begun working on various things. I'm going to give copies out to my colleagues. These are great publicity materials. They're available for the public. I'm going to ask colleagues to put on an armband like me. It says Fagia Kenya, integrity, and I would like to see somebody's vehicle when I see him in the traffic. And also, I'm sure he reads books, so I'm sure your bookmark would be very good. So we have a big event coming up on December the 9th, and it's going to be at Central Park.
Excuse?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me one to give my boss Uhuru Kenyatta?
Could you give one to your principal and our president?
This is for my president.
All right, and we hope that will happen.
And I will give one also to Mbadi to give to his principal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilton Irungu. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's take a look at your feedback again as we wind up this discussion. Right, on Twitter, what are you saying? Right. We have Martin Enoch, everybody is corrupt. Kitu Kidogo is spreading at a high rate. Irungu says, in Awezekana, it's possible to slay this dragon. Mary-Liz Bilbo, right? We are the change. If Kenya speaks in a single voice, let's fight corruption. Of course we can. Can we be one voice? It's a question. And Victoria Odipo, no, Kenya is not serious on this war. Justice is still for sale. The government should let the judiciary be independent. And Ahmed Hassan says this war is not only about declaring wealth and so forth, it's a change of attitude from every single Kenyan. And finally, fortunes. Corruption is not an individual thing. It's affecting the whole nation. I believe uprooting it starts with me. Keep talking to us on 224 on Twitter using the hashtag. The big question, our guest again, Associate Director, Society for International Development, Hilton Irungu, John Badi Suba MP, and Mukurueni, Member of Parliament, Kabando. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time for the big question tonight. We're back after this short break.